Welcome then to this video explanation about our design thinking model. We are eager to show you how our model is going to be developed. Take into account there are 5 steps involved: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and iteration. Let's watch this explanation, and please don't hesitate to see our infography where the model is explained to.
And on this video, we're going to talk about how to create an action plan and how to implement it when we create a design thinking model. In this case, the topic that we have selected is equity and accessibility for learners with specific needs. And I'm going to talk about the first step of the action plan. The first step is empathize. So it is important for us as teachers or as the creators of an action plan to empathize with these kind of students so that they can feel included in their process. For doing this, some of the recommendations to keep this in mind are listening to these students' stories and validating their experiences. That's very important for them. So in that way, we can also acknowledge their resilience by navigating unfamiliar systems. We need to understand that these students are in totally unfamiliar environments, so that could be a little bit complicated for them to integrate in a community. After doing that, in order to empathize, it's a good idea to provide support that address their specific needs. Like to identify those students and provide the support that they really need in a specific space. Also, it's important to foster a sense of belonging with a school community. So it helps to mitigate feelings of isolation. Sometimes when students feel isolated, it's important to try to make them part of the community. So in that case, this feeling can be mitigated.
Well, it's time to set the context for this situation here on the define stage. According to the International Organization for Migration, only 10% from the 264,184 immigrants from Venezuela have access basic education in Colombia. This phenomenon is reshaping our entire educational ecosystem, but is the Ministry of Education ready to face this challenge? As suggested by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in 2022, the Colombian government granted temporary statuses for the protection of immigrants. And what about educational communities? It is time to disrupt, adapt, and transform our educational practices. And for that reason, we are going to suggest practical solutions in the next stage, ideate. Well, who's going to take responsibility for this challenge? Educational experts, the government, scholars, educators, schools stakeholders. Well, while we wait for an answer, it's time to suggest a practical intervention on how to create a much more inclusive atmosphere in the language classroom. This is the diary method. This is a guided practice where students reflect upon their life experiences through a series of questions created by their teacher. Against all traditional methodologies, this practice reflects students' life experiences. So in the next stage, we are going to see how these type of activities look like. The next stage is the prototype.
Hi, I'm Miguel Sanchez, and there I'm going to explain the prototype stage from the design thinking model. During that order, I will explain you what will we do. There, as a prototype of pedagogical intervention, we plan to give to each student a book who is going to be called My Journey Book. The idea of having this book is to let students write on their language notes, but also, and specifically at the half part of this book, students can express themselves by creating a journal, wiki, weekly or daily, depending on themselves. The creation of these kind of journals based on Bunger permits us as a teachers to keep a track on the students' thoughts, feelings, and ideas about how they feel in class, taking into account they have special needs. They are not on the same socioeconomical standards as immigrants. They could face difficulties in getting a new language. That's why knowing how they feel is extremely important to visualize them inside the group they want to be part now. Finally, something special about this exercise is the students should create their journal as they want. If they want to write or paint or draw, it's up to them. And the idea is sharing their journals among them, making making that visualization bigger and bigger. Thanks so much.
All right, and then finally, as the final step of this design thinking model, we have the iteration step. The iteration is basically how to evaluate that all the rest of the steps that we have done before can be evaluated in at the end of an action plan. So in order to evaluate the results of this plan, these actions can be done taking into account the previous steps that we did before. First of all, it's important to make students share their ideas from their books with their classmates so that they can open up to others and communicate better. So it allows communication so that they can open up and express their feelings and the way as they see things in general. After that, it's important that through their books, it is possible to track students' possible causes of isolation. After listening to what they created in their books, we can identify those causes and create a plan to eliminate those causes. So in that case, you can contribute to improve their communication process so that they can address those causes according to each case. In that way, this plan can be evaluated, and in the future, it is possible to see the possible solutions or the changes after implemented this design thinking model and this action plan. So those are pretty much the 5 steps on this plan. And I hope it is clear for you. And that'll be all. Thank you for everything.